Okay. Welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter, where I teach you how to start flipping and wholesaling houses, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. So I got a question, and I was about to just answer it quickly, and the answer is, can you sell or finance or do subject to in New York City? So I was going to just reply with some older videos, and I looked, and they were over 2 years old. So I guess it's time to refresh the subject. Let me explain what seller finance is and what subject to is, and let me give you my opinions on how it works in New York. Seller finance can go two ways, right? You can buy a property with seller financing where they finance to you, where the seller wants to be the bank, or you can seller finance out to a buyer where you are the bank. Now, you can't be the bank in New York because in New York, it can take over a decade to foreclose. So if a seller wants to finance to you, the idea being that you're going to have payments that are lower, usually, than you will get from a tenant or a tenant buyer, and there'll be a cash flow arbitrage there where you're making more money each month, absolutely consider it. I've had situations like that. The numbers didn't work every time. It's hard to work with high price points like we have in our area and with high taxes. So again, what people are willing to pay as a rental, even as a tenant buyer where they're renting with an option to buy, there are limits on it, right? You can't. It's hard to rent something to someone for $5,000 a month. Most people are not going to be able to afford that, right? $3,000 a month, people can. In general, it depends on the area and the house, of course. But the numbers have to work. But to be the bank and seller finance out to a buyer is a big no-no in New York. We are by far, without any even remotely close second place, the worst state for foreclosures. Before the pandemic, it could take 10 years. With the pandemic, it's going to take like 14 years to foreclose on. It takes forever. So I would highly advise against it. Now, subject to is a whole different topic, and it's an interesting topic, right? The idea of subject to is that you're going to buy a property and you are going to keep the existing seller's mortgage in place. You buy the property, but the mortgage stays in place. And it is something that I think can work in certain situations in 49 states. The one state where I think it will never work, or I don't want to say never, but almost never work, is New York. And there are two main reasons why I honestly believe it'll almost never work in New York. The first is that the seller is going to be represented by an attorney. If the seller is represented by an attorney, I don't think there is an attorney in the world or the state of New York that would allow his client to sell a property and keep the funding, the loan, in somebody else's name who's now responsible to make the payments. And if they don't, it's going to affect the seller's credit. I honestly believe that if that happened and an attorney said no problem, and then for whatever reason the buyer missed the payment or screwed up the guy's credit, I think that attorney might be subject to malpractice. So again, can you do a deal with that attorney? Possible. That's one problem. The second problem, really the biggest problem, are title companies. Now, in most states, the title company really runs the transaction. They, the contract goes to them, the funds go through them, everything happens with the title company. That is not the way it happens in New York. In New York, the title companies are really much simpler service providers. And they do two things at a closing, basically. They do a few other things, but basically they do two things. There are minor things they do, like make sure the docs are recorded. But the main things that they do are they make sure that all the liens are paid off, which is a problem for subject to, and they make sure all the taxes are paid off. Or any liens and taxes, all taxes you can throw in there. They make sure everything's paid off. So if you're going to find me a title company in New York that says no problem, if the parties agree we're going to leave the first mortgage on there, I would be shocked. Is it impossible? No, but unlikely. Unlikely to find that title company and somebody who's not represented by attorney. Very unlikely. And let's understand something with subject to. And I'm not knocking subject to. I think it has a place. There are situations where it makes sense. But let's be perfectly honest here. And with all respect to Pace Morby and the whole crew, and I think those are good guys, and Pace is a good guy too. The truth is, there's a due on sale clause on the mortgage that says when you sell the property, you got to pay off the loan. Now, are there ways so that you get around the due on sale clause so that the existing lien holder doesn't know you sold the property? Yes. But there is no way to legally get around it. There is no way to call up the lender and say, hey, I want to sell this property. Is it okay if the new guy just makes the payments? They'll never say yes to that, ever. Now, are there ways? You have to be careful with the insurance. There are things you could do. And of course, if you do this and you make the payments, the lender's never going to know and never give a crap. Never. Right? But it's a gray area of being illegal. Now, no one's going to jail over it, and it's not going to be a big problem. But you've got to understand something. The due on sale clause states clearly, sell the property, pay off the loan. There is no way to cleanly get around that. There are ways to circumvent it. There are ways, and again, the lender's never going to know if the payments are being made, especially if the payments are late and now you get current. The lender's going to be happy, but understand that there really is no way. So I don't see how subject to can be done in New York due to both the problems with the seller's attorney never allowing a client to do it, and B, having title companies that really are going to make sure it's paid off. Now, I've closed deals with title companies where we kept minor liens. I'm talking about like parking liens for $200 in place. We'll close up to that. They don't mind that something small, but they're not going to let the first lien mortgage sit there. That's just, I've never seen anybody that'll do that. But if you know a title company that do it, I'm sure, please drop me a line. I'd love to talk to them. So that's how I feel. So those are like two of the main tools in creative finance, right? There are other tools in creative finance. So there's lease options, right, which is to buy, lease a property from the seller with an option to buy, and then you can either wholesale that lease option, or you can do a sandwich lease option, which means you then lease out the property to a tenant buyer, and hopefully you have a positive cash flow in between. There's seller financing on both sides, which I told you is great in New York if the seller wants to be the bank to you, but you never want to be the bank and seller finance to a buyer, because if they stop making payments, you're going to be in big trouble. And any possible way you think that'll make it quicker, it's still going to be years and years. So if you can sit with a property for years and years without receiving payments, great, right? I mean, obviously there is a point where that makes sense, right? If I could buy a $20 million property for $100,000, and I don't care what to pay, and I'm gonna then be the bank for somebody who's paying me a $10 million loan. Okay, but with normal numbers, it doesn't work, and it's very hard for a lot of those deals to work. There was a point where I really wanted to do lease options in New York, but it was hard for me to find a property where the numbers worked, because again, we have very high price points, which makes the debt service very high, and we have very high taxes, which makes the payments very high. In addition, those two things together make a lot of deals in New York very difficult if they're single family to be cash flow positive. It's very, very rare that you'll have a single family in most parts of New York where it's going to be cash flow positive. There are some exceptions, and you can possibly get an amazing deal. But even if you're paying, $400,000, which is below the median price here, it's hard with a $400,000 debt service, or $350,000 debt service, let's say, and with $1,000 a month in taxes, it's hard to make the numbers work. Now, it does work. You can be cash flow positive if you have a multi-unit, 2-3 units, then things start to make sense. But it's very hard for it to work on single family, single unit properties. So, creative finance is something that works best in 49 states. New York is very hard for a lot of the creative finance to work. Very hard. I wish it wasn't. And I know guys that spend money on Pace Morby's Sub 2 crew in New York, and then eventually they were doing work outside of New York, because inside New York is hard. It's very hard for a lot of the creative finance to work because of the numbers I just gave you. So, we'll cut this one a little short. I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com or howtoflipandwholesale.com. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any media channel, please hit the thumbs up. The likes really help the algorithm. A lot more people seeing my videos, so thank you for all the thumbs ups. And please keep the questions coming. I post 5 times a week. I don't always know what to say. Your questions not only give me questions to answer directly like I did today, but also give me food for thought for things to talk about in the future. So please keep the comments coming. You can ask any question you want. It does not have to be about the video you're watching. I don't care. Try to get back to everything pretty quickly. And if it's a simple answer, I'll just reply with an answer. If it's something that I've covered very recently, I'll send you a link to a video or multiple videos on it. And if it's something new or something I haven't covered in a while, like today, which I didn't cover in 2 years, then I'll do a brand new video on it. So thank you very, very much for watching.